Welcome back to Total Freedom Radio with Rina Lynn. This is the show that's all about raising the bar of knowledge, healing hurting people, and spiritual warfare. We are on KRRB Radio, revelationradio.net, and it will go to Rumble, YouTube, and Brighteon next. And you guys tune in to hear amazing stories of healing and share your story with others. And today I have got an absolutely outstanding guest that you will absolutely love. I want to introduce you to Estie Martin. And Estie, why don't you tell my audience who you are and what projects you're working on and what's going on with your life right now?
Hi, thanks, Rena, for having me. So, yeah, as she said, my name is Estie. I am a missionary. I live currently in the country of Turin, Italy. So, for those who don't know where it is, where most people don't, I am in the north west kind of region of Italy, about 2 hours west of the city of Milan. We are the I think we're about the fourth largest or one of the four larger cities of Italy, but a lot of people don't know about it because it is an industry city. We're not known for tourism. So, yeah, I have been in the city of Turin serving with a church plant for going on 6 years now. And along with that, I've been working on a project or a ministry really that's called the Più Forti Project. And it's spelled down there at the bottom of your screen. And we are a kids' music, media, and resource ministry.
That sounds incredibly interesting. So let me ask you something. Why are you in Italy? Did you go to there for this project? Did it come about after you got there? And tell us a little bit about your journey from being a missionary and ended up in Italy on this project.
Yeah, so actually I kind of have to go way back. I grew up as a missionary kid in Mexico. So I grew up in central Mexico. My dad is a pastor of a church there, and my parents have been there for about 26 years. I never had plans of being a missionary. That was like definitely not one of my goals. I was more interested in going to school, getting a degree, kind of, having a career. And ministry and missions was not my goal. If anything, it was like the opposite. Not because I like hated what my parents did or my life. I was very thankful for it. But it wasn't what I was thinking I would do. So I moved to the States when I was 19. I attended a Bible college. Also, I was not planning on doing Bible college because I was like, that's also what a pastor missionary's kid does. But when you live out of the country, you have to move back to the States and you're trying to figure out college and the cost of college. I was like, all right, Bible college was what seemed to be affordable at that time, and it was kind of like a good stepping stone back. So from there, I did a few years of Bible college. I ended up moving to Washington State, and I worked at a pregnancy resource center there for 4.5 years. I was the receptionist for a while, the Spanish speaking coordinator, and then I also was the community outreach coordinator, which meant I would go out and teach. So I would go to juvenile detention. That was like my favorite job. I worked at juvie for about 3 years teaching kind of like a life courses class. We talked about uh, STDs, drugs, alcohol, teen pregnancy, and I did a lot of the similar lessons. I would go and share at church youth groups. But through the time, through those years, I was in a small town in Washington State and really feeling like I wanted to move out of Washington State. Where I was raised was in the tropics, and living in the rainy weather, a small town, I was like, I don't know if this is exactly, I don't think I can continue in this weather for so long. And anyways, it was kind of a period of life of just praying like, Lord, where do you want me to go? What do you want me to do? What's my next step? In that season, a group of friends and I decided to take a trip to Europe, and we traveled multiple countries. Like that you save all of your money to do your big European trip in your 20s. And the end of that trip, I was walking around. I was out in the city of Treviso, Italy. So that is about an hour outside of Venice. We were staying there. And I was walking around and there was a bridge we walked by, and there was just a moment that in my heart I said, in 1 year, I'm moving here. I didn't know how, I didn't know what I was going to do. I definitely was not thinking missions. I was just like, that was still one of those things. I'm like, that's one thing I don't want to do, Lord. Like, I'll do anything else, but I don't want to do missions. And so kind of that began the journey of thinking, okay, Lord, how do I get there? Because I have this sense that that's where I'm supposed to go. And I returned to the Bible college I had graduated from because my sister was about to graduate the same one. And I was talking to the wife of one of my former teachers. And she just like asked me, she's like, Estie, like, what do you want to do? And I said, I really want to move to Italy. I always had a goal of speaking at least 3 languages, and I was ready for a change. And she said, well, I have these friends who are starting a church in the city of Turin. Let me put you in contact with them. And so that was kind of like the beginning of how this all happened. So I moved there for the church, but then I'm still with the church, but then being there, a lot of other things evolved. And one of those things that happened was this project.
When you felt that call on you to go to Italy, other than recognizing that nudge of the Lord, what was the pull towards you? Was there a particular thing that caught your attention that you think maybe pulled you in that to toward the ministry, or did you even understand at that point that this was God bringing you there, or you just thought that was totally outside that?
I knew that God was moving me. That much was for sure. I knew so about a year before I left Washington State, I knew I was going to move on, but I was a leader at in our church youth group. I mean, I had multiple jobs. I worked at the pregnancy center. I was a nanny. I lived with a family and was helped nanny the kids. I was a ballet teacher, so I was super busy. And I needed about a year's worth of time to work towards moving out. So I knew God was moving me on. I think God's really patient because I think he was clearly calling me for that period to move into ministry, but I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready to admit that, and I think because just growing up in ministry, I was like, I know the reality of what that means. It's not
Mm.
a glamorized like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. I think in the Christian world, people think being in ministry or being in missions is kind of like this the highest calling, which I have a I have an issue with that phrasing because I don't believe that. But almost like glamorize it. And I'm like,
Mhm. I
I
see that.
know what that is, and I don't know if I want that because I know all that kind of comes with that. So, but the draw to the country had always been from when I was young. I was always interested in Italian. I don't know. It's probably one of those things that a lot of young girls my age at that point were like drawn to. But my other thing is, I always wanted to speak a third language. That was kind of like one of my life goals. My life goal is still speak maybe five by the time I pass away. So I still have like two more languages I'd like to learn in my lifetime. But I was like, I wanted to move. I knew God was moving me out. I really wanted to live in another country. And part of that, I think, also comes with growing up being a third culture kid where I was American, raised in Mexico. So I was never fully treated as Mexican because I was different. And then I moved to the States. I'm like, I don't always feel like I fit in. And so I was like, I'm good to go live in a foreign country and just be completely foreign. And I think I like that. So it was kind of a mix of those desires and the I have a friend who always said you kind of have a bit of a I'm like very much a homebody, but have like a she said you have a gypsy heart too, like you like to kind of move around. And and just God moving. It was kind of like changing my heart, calling me, moving me, but also I think incorporating how he made me, the desires he's given me, my ability to adapt well to other cultures. I'm not saying it's easy by any means, it was not easy, but I have that flexibility having lived biculturally that understanding a new culture isn't that far of a reach for me.
I like that. I have found in my life and talking to other people that it's like things that we think are so has nothing to do with where God's taking us. Literally is the elements that he's putting together that will coalesce into what he wants us to do. And I happen to know a lot of pastors' children who who feel about it like you do. They might grow up into being really, really good lay leaders, but they kind of shun the ministry, and for several different reasons. But I've seen that as well. I know just as a layperson, my children were pretty much raised in a church room while we were doing other things, and there's parts of me that really regrets that now. Um,
Mm.
one thing I did love about it is we sang at the Witness in Hot Springs for 5 years, and they got to, be right in the story of Jesus night after night after night. That was great. My son played baby Jesus when he was little, and, um, they always have that to fall back on, but it's hard sometimes because people expect more of you, but also the finger pointing and the everything's your fault too. So I've seen that as well.
You are under a
Um
microscope.
I have heard that exact phrase more than once. I interviewed Craig Mickle from Saving God's Children last week and loved the interview. And I believe in what he's doing. And I love what you're doing, it just so couples with it, even though it's in another country, is taking care of God's children, reaching them and keeping them safe. And so I joined with him to be the Texas representative here. And it's my goal to get the information that he offers for free for about child grooming, child predators online into the hands of every Texas pastor. So I'd like to say to anybody out there right now, if you have the email to your Texas pastor, please reach me at askrinalynn@yahoo.com because I'm finding emails are very hard to get. Give me just one moment, Esty, to talk about my sponsors and take care of that little housekeeping thing for just one moment. All right, I want to talk just for moment about my sponsors. If you will go to my website, rinalynn.com, you'll find this green and white symbol. I know we're on the radio for the first part, but it does go to YouTube, Rumble, and Brighteon, and a couple of more places. So look for the green and white USDA organics symbol. Click into that, and it will take you straight to the Brighteon store where everything is USDA organic, non GMO, kosher, and gluten free. He has stuff for food and beverages, personal care, healthy home supplements, and lots of other things. Um, Sign up for my newsletter at rinalynn.com and click into one of the book covers and start this amazing journey of this saga of a safe haven where we see a group of God's people at war with a group of, let's just say, the opposites people. And we see all the things that they go through while the enemy tries to stamp them out, and they are a called family with an end time task that God called 3,000 years ago. I'd love to share it with you. All right. Support my sponsors and donate to keep great content coming. That is how we keep doing it. And the ways that you can do that is an outright donation or using my affiliate links and supporting the affiliates. I can't talk today for some reason, or buy the books. And also, I sell life insurance. As you know, I'm not going to go into a great deal on that, but you can also clip in to Simply Clean Foods, and all of his stuff is tested. There's no heavy metals. It's also non-GMO, and he's a great guy who supports veterans and helps them transform from where they are when they come back to where they need to be to integrate back into society. Here is my life insurance stuff. I'm not going to go over it in detail. You've heard it all before, but I do need to make a living as I support my writing habits. So if you need a quote, please contact me. And also do some bookkeeping. This is a time of year where everybody wants their messed up books fixed so they can get back into their taxes. But let's go back and talk to Esty a little bit more. 'Cause Esty, I am just really, really excited. I love your story of how you went to Italy, but when you got there, how hard was it to integrate with the people? And how soon was it before you realized that God had brought you there for more than just your simple enjoyment?
Well, that's a funny question because when I arrived to Italy, when I did 3 months of kind of like a trial period in 2019. So I was there September through December of 2019, and the pastor was like, come out. Let's get to know each other better. We had never met in person, and let's just see if you fit within the ministry that we're doing. I went there and was like, okay, yeah, this is definitely where I feel God's calling me. And they agreed as a team. And so I went back to the States. I sold everything, got my religious visa, which actually was pretty hard to get, because I'm coming in on a religious visa as an evangelical Christian and not a Catholic. And in Italy, it's very important we make those distinctions of Catholics and evangelical Christians. It's how they distinguish. And I even had the lady, when she was giving me my visa, there were some problems, use the words of like, ended a statement with, there's document problems, like, plus, why would I even trust you? You're a Christian, not Catholic. So it's kind of like the beginning part of getting into Italy. I Rumors were starting to happen of like, hey, there's this virus, there's this weird thing, there's something in Italy. I remember going and getting some dental work done a week before, and the dentist was like, you should not go. Like, this is going to be crazy. You shouldn't go to Italy. And I was like, it'll be fine. So I got on a plane. It was March of 2020. It was right at the beginning. I believe it was March 4th or 5th. I was flying there. And a lot of people were like, what are you doing? Like, why are you going? Things are getting crazy. Things are starting to change. We're hearing a lot of rumors in the news. You should not go. You should cancel your trip. And I was like, nope, this is what I know God's calling me to do. So I got on that plane. I landed in Spain for my layover. And I remember calling my mom, like, I was like, am I making a mistake? And she was like, you can always call them home. And I was like, no, mom, like, you need to tell me that I'm supposed to do, what I know that I'm supposed to obey. And she's like, okay. And so I got on that next flight and went to Italy. And a week later, the whole country went on lockdown. And so my initial transition, to answer your question, how was it adapting to the new culture? It's hard because I was adapting to the new culture in the middle of COVID. So what was just the hardship of COVID, or what was the hardship of the cultural adaptations? It's really hard to like distinguish what the two were, because we were all like, the whole country was living through what this battle was of trying to figure all of this out. Jobs and the restrictions and staying home. I mean, we were one of the more restricted countries in the world, right? I think it was, you had China, Australia, Italy, there, New Zealand, I think. There's a couple of us that were the really, really tight ones. So those first year or 2 years, what they usually say is about the hardest time it takes. So in those first 2 years is pretty rough for the most part when you move to any new country, whether it's missions or not, because you're really working on adapting. I moved to a new country and had COVID on top of that. So it was a kind of a mix of both. So it was a really hard season, but I couldn't tell you as much of what was just the COVID craziness of the world and what was the cultural adapting parts.
So you don't know if that made it harder or made it easier because you had a smaller pool to have to learn to adapt to?
I think what I don't know is, I don't know if it would have been easier without COVID. Maybe it would have been easier to adapt. I don't know. It just all felt hard, but I think it was just hard because of COVID. So,
And I'm assuming that the church that the pastor preached at was shut down and all of that. Did that give you more one-on-one time with him and his wife that you could develop a ministry, or did it really hamper
yes.
things?
So I actually, it's funny. So I lived under their house. They had a house that's divided into three apartments, and so we had our own actual garden area, which is very rare for the city we live in. Most of people were in apartment complexes. So I had a tiny, tiny studio apartment. It was about the size of the whole kitchen bedroom was the size of like the average American room. It was all in one little room. So we got very, very close during that period. And so yeah, so I was really close with them, and adjusting in regards to ministry. A lot we can do. The church closed. One of the differences I had in it is that the can really have the churches reopen because of their. So we never had the issue in the States with churches staying closed. Basically, when they ended the first lockdown, because we kind of went different types of lockdowns, but then it was like zones, like couldn't leave your city and stuff. But after, I think May, we opened up to a church, and we never.
Estie, I'm having trouble. You're freezing a little bit, and your words are choppy. I don't know that it's on my end. Is there anything you can do on your end to help that a little bit?
No, Wi-Fi is completely full, so there's not much I can do here.
Okay. I've not had that issue much, so I really don't. I'm not quite sure how to handle it. We'll try to muddle through. We've got a little bit of this interview left, but I do want to have you come back next week, and we'll talk more because I know we've barely touched the surface on this. And if you can still hear me, and we can still hear you, because you're kind of frozen right now. Do you think that you would have developed the project that you have developed if had the church been open, had it been there like it had always been, would the push to do something beyond that to reach the children have been there? Did
I
you
don't know. I have a hard time answering that. So, for a point of reference for the listeners, able to hear me okay, even if the video's
I can
frozen?
hear you, but you're still frozen, so I don't know what that's about.
Okay, well, at least we got some audio. So, the project that was mentioned at the beginning, the Più Forti Project, is a ministry that was born during COVID, where our pastor's wife, Danae Downs, she is a very musician. She wrote a song based off of a book, and we sent it to the kids from our church who were feeling lonely and isolated and disconnected. Her, myself, and her husband all dressed up in really like silly costumes, and we kind of danced to this song, and we sent it to the kids, and they loved it, and they dressed up again, and they responded and sent us back all of their videos, and we were able to do really connected with our kids in church. And that was what vision of us asking, what content out there that created that's high quality and based is there that is in a 10. So that began our search, to which we realized there's was basically nothing for kids. There was some old music that was maybe more little kids, or not as much music that your 8, 9, 10-year-old would want to, or not having a high quality production. And so we realized we're in this country, make disciple men, and what better way to impact the future generations than to reach kids. And so that started the project of Più Forti, which just started as a CD, started as one album. It turned into us then also producing 10 high quality music videos and a Sunday school curriculum to accompany every song and video. Each song is based on a Bible verse. So I don't know if it would have happened outside of COVID. It very well still could have, but God definitely used us being in lockdown, trying to connect with the kids as the push and the kind of what sparked the engine to get us going on this project.
Well, I think that's what sparked my questions, because when I first heard your interview, when I first learned about your project and you is the my my brain works very differently than most people's, I think, but I'm thinking, the need is what brought the ministry, it's what brought the project, it's what brought the spark of the idea that, we've got to do something outside of the usual because we can't do the usual. And sometimes
Yeah.
I think that God puts us in those positions that, to us, it's not the ideal situation, but that's where the creativity comes in, because I can tell you when I'm pushed into a corner, that's when the creativity really comes out. If it
Yeah,
had been
absolutely.
easy, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, tell us about the first song. I know what you do is in Italian because you're reaching Italian kids, but kinda give us, an idea in English what the very first song when you were talking about the scripture, it kinda cut out, so we missed that, but what was the deciding factor on that scripture, and how did the song go?
So how that was is it's worked really with our kids ministry director, who she's actually my roommate as well. That Danae just asked her, she's like, what song do you think, what Bible verse do you think would be a good Bible verse to base this first song off? And if I am completely honest, blanking totally on, when you hear everything so many times and translate, I'm like, Which one was it? I honestly, I think for next week I'll probably have to like look that up and tell you which one it was. Um, because yeah, my it's like when somebody asks you how to say, for me they ask me, so how do you say this word in that language, and the question goes and my brain goes, ugh, it's a complete blank. But yeah, so it was basically our kids ministry director, because she teaches, and with along with the lessons she went through, and I think just prayed about it and like picked 10 Bible verses. There's like a video, one of the music videos that I'm in is the fear of the Lord is beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. And so it's me dressed as a teacher in a classroom with kids, and even at the beginning, it starts out very structured and there's a very rigid classroom. And as the music video goes on, the kids realize things magically start appearing, right? And the room starts changing and we end up in completely different costumes, and it's really fun. And that's kind of like a subtle message, right? Like you can hear the scripture being repetitive, but the more you read it, the more you understand it, the more scripture comes alive. uh and it that even connected, being the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? And then knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. And even with that, it's just connecting those concepts together. So for both the first and the second project, which is what we're in the middle of working on, which we'll get into probably, I'm guessing, more next week, is more focused on teenagers and the music style. We wanted to make music and make video content that kids are going to want to listen to and they're going to want to watch. But we know that what we consume affects us. And our big goal, and what I say all the time, is we want to capture the minds and the attention of teens and kids to reach their hearts for Jesus.
See, and I really like that because it's my opinion that many times the churches that I have been involved with, it's almost like they dumb down the children. Something simple, something easy. I call it VBS theology, fishbowl mentality. Gets me in trouble occasionally. We got about 1 minute left, but I do admire very much the fact that you went straight to the meat of the word, straight to the heart of it. That this is the important thing. I love meeting you. I love introducing you to my guest. We've got about a little over 30 seconds left. Tell them where they can find, if they want to watch one of these music videos, where they can find that.
So if you go to our YouTube page, and it's spelled exactly the same as the website, so Piuforti, that spells Più Forti Project. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on our website. Più Forti means stronger in Italian. So it's kind of that concept of being stronger together is why we chose that name. So you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and on our website.
All right. Thank you so much, Esty, and we'll see you next week. Thank you for joining us on Total Freedom Radio, and we will try to keep great guests like Esty going forward.